destruction, ecocide, poverty, death. The Dominican Republic is a nation where political power has based the development and planning of its society at a high cost, impacting the environment and causing incalculable damage to nature and the population itself in recent decades. An example of this is the construction of the Las Placetas hydroelectric complex, a destructive and counterproductive project that has been reactivated after being suspended in 2012, which ignores the principles of social and ecological sustainability, among other reasons, and that will cause an unprecedented ecocide in the Bao and Jagua rivers and their derivations, affluents whose waters have already been diminished for 20 years, and dammed in the Tavera and Bao dams, losing more than 50% of their original flow. In recent months, the EHE, the company in charge of hydroelectric generation in the country, has presented videos of the supposed marvel as the main source of clean energy, with reports practically for infants, made up and devoid of information which do not take into account the real social and ecological impacts that the construction of these 3 dams will bring, which really will be the largest gigantic ecocide in the country and the Caribbean. The following are the most of the urban settlements that would suffer the real catastrophic consequences of irreversible socio-environmental deterioration and damage, and which are located within the intervention area. The dam to be built in the Mata Grande, regardless of its location, would affect the buffer zone of the Armando Bermudez Park. In legal terms, these components and infrastructure that are being proposed for the construction of this hydroelectric complex in the upper part of the watershed between the 2 rivers is in violation of the General Environmental Law No. 64-00 and the Sectoral Law 202-04 of protected areas, as well as in violation of the protection of the water course within the riverbed, as established by said law. This undesired work represents an unprecedented eco-social disaster in our reserves and populations, since it is estimated that more than 35,000 people would be left without a sustainable water supply option between the municipalities of San Jose de las Matas and Jánico. This will definitely end the tourist development of the populations of La Sierra, which as an attraction today are the most visited points by nationals and foreigners in the country, radically affecting the medium and small businesses of the humble entrepreneurial families, as well as the previous, current, and future investments in tourism in the area. For example, the reduction of the waters of the basin would cause the disappearance and definitive closure of more than 15 bathing resorts along the Bao and Jagua rivers, without counting the impact of others, either because they are within the construction area, where they will receive polluted and contaminated waters, or in times of drought they would not have the basic flow for their operation, as well as the decrease of water caused by the technological control imposed on the gates of the 3 dams by the EHE, since the production of electricity would only be indispensable regardless of the damage to the ecosystem and the socio-economic crisis that would be unleashed. The case of La Cordillera Central at the northern and southern mouths is already generating a supply deficit of more than 100,000 cubic meters per year in the north, rapidly escalating to the current 83% less available for use in the south of the Cordillera. How much more would the waters of our rivers decrease if this project is consummated? Ecocide percentages. The use of connection tunnels to divert part of the flow of the Bao River without ruling out the future diversion of the Jamamu River to supply the dam of Los Limones would affect the nearby towns of Sabaneta, Sajoma, Juncalito, and Mata Grande, causing unprecedented ecological and social damage, as well as each of the connection and loading tunnels that would cross the Jagua River, causing different points of fatal ecocide downstream and the destruction of our soils and subsoils, destroying and transforming agricultural areas and their intended use, deteriorating natural reserves, serious geological damage to the structure and conformation of the subsoil layers due to the use of explosive materials to open the rocky soil in mountains and hills, degeneration of soil quality, destruction of flora and fauna, degeneration of the quality of life of the inhabitants of the area affected by the tunnels, and of air quality mainly. The modification of the climate or microclimate affecting the health of citizens, the emission of gases such as carbon dioxide and methane, loss of crops, flooding of fertile land, and destruction of hydro-agricultural infrastructure and roads, affectation in rural and urban areas, isolation, displacement of entire communities that will most likely be without remuneration, as has happened in the past, change in the physical, chemical, and biological characteristics of dammed waters due to the dragging of sediments, organic and inorganic matter, coliform bacteria which increase the concentration of suspended sediments and the turbidity of the water, decreasing dissolved oxygen in general, would have negative effects on the quality of the vital liquid. In extreme seasons of drought and adverse natural phenomena such as El Niño, river flows can be drastically reduced, and therefore electricity production. In the case of Mata Grande and Los Limones dams, if the costs and benefits are measured, the costs will be greater, since there is a high risk of abandonment, as has happened in many dams in Latin America, which, due to lack of water, when their main tributaries for electricity production diminished, left as a result not only a gigantic ecocide, but also monumental structures that will remain as ghosts for eternity. The communities of the affected areas and populations are now victims of a tangled ecocidal crime, as officials from various institutions are in the Dominican Sierra with a plan of false promises, blackmail, and manipulation, offering 3,000 jobs that would only be temporary, but not permanent, and for a small number of the population. They are also uttering blatant lies that this situation would positively affect tourism, which would be counterproductive if the businesses and companies that depend on the natural flows of the rivers would close. In addition to all this, the communities are also suffering dangerous intimidation acts against the community leaders who oppose this ecocide. Among other irregular situations, and scandalous as the bribery of politicians in high positions and community leaders by the Ejahid, it is dissonant that the state company assumes functions in a role that does not correspond to it, by assigning infrastructure projects to private companies of very bad international reputation as the builder Andrade Gutierrez Ocecon, Brazilian company that, together with Odebrecht, of the same country and with a history of corruption in Latin America, were involved in the 2015 scandal of Operation Lava Jato, a process that highlighted a gigantic network of bribes linked to politics that cost more than $2 billion to the Brazilian state, where the construction company Andrade Gutierrez was fined by the authorities and undertook to return to the Brazilian public coffers more than $382 million for damages, in addition to being investigated for the crimes of cartel formation, bid rigging, corruption, diversion of public funds, and money laundering, according to the Brazilian Federal Police. In spite of all this criminal action that is being carried out against La Sierra, today, with their own efforts and resources, the communities that oppose this project continue to raise their voices nationally and internationally, giving a fierce battle against this mega ecocide, carrying out multiple activities and marches so that the social license is not granted to this criminal project, thus forming the Socio-Environmental Coalition in Defense of La Sierra and the company of several social and environmental organizations and private Dominican and U.S. companies to protect not only the spring of the Dominican Republic, but the future of all the families of the mountains. So today we ask ourselves, is it fair that the Dominican government allows the humble, noble, and hardworking people of La Sierra to be subjected to the greatest ecocide of the Caribbean and be at the mercy of the threatening criminal actions of shady companies with such a corrupt past and criminal background? Make your own conclusions.